Morning, time to turn our attention to the Camogie Final this weekend. Upcoming Cork versus Waterford. Sarah ODonovan, good morning.
Good morning, lads. How's it going?
Keeping well. We were chatting, as you know, to Chloe Murray yesterday, and she made the point that the entire country, bar one county, is supporting Waterford this weekend. How does that feel to know that everyone is against you?
It's probably true. This is the David versus Goliath story. This is the Meath of the ladies football world opportunity for Waterford. If they were to do this, that would be the scenario. This would be coming up from Division 1B, having never, I suppose, really challenged any of the teams. No team has challenged Cork, Kilkenny or Galway since 2012. Dublin tried it in 2017, failed to make the final. Tipperary failed to make the final, and Waterford come out of nowhere, parachuted into the final on Sunday, and I think they have a chance.
They absolutely did come out of nowhere, didn't they? Like, I don't think there was any pundits giving them a chance at the start of the season, but the way in which they play is exciting as well. They go for goals. Cork tend to concede goals, so that sets it up a little bit nicely, I guess.
Yeah, I've been following the team since probably 2020. So I was in the management crowd with Dublin when we relegated them from the league in 2020, and really, really concerned at the time. I was saying to you last week, Shane, that Waterford would disappear. They've had, I think, 3 different managers in the last 5 years. So that's another narrative that's kind of hard to fathom. Dan Shanahan was in there in 2020. Derek Lyons, Callum Lyons' dad, was in there for the last number of years, done amazing work. And now this year, a new manager again in Sean Power. So, you know, they've had so many setbacks and they've had so much, I suppose, inconsistency in terms of their setups, their resources. The group themselves, though, has stayed together. And as you mentioned, ridiculous goals from the likes of Niamh Rockett, Beth Carton, class players in the likes of Brianna O'Regan, Lorraine Bray. It's just such a solid, cohesive group. And I think that's why they're in the All-Ireland Final on Sunday.
When we chat about this Waterford team, we inevitably start talking about Beth Carton quite a bit, but I think there's good reason for that. I mean, she is brilliant, Sarah, and that's one large enough headache for Cork this weekend.
It is, I suppose, from Cork's point of view, they've had large headaches all season. Yeah. So in Galway, they've had some, incredibly good players to be especially the likes of Siobhan McGrath, Aoife Donoghue in midfield for Galway, but they managed her. In terms of Kilkenny and what they did against Kilkenny in Croke Park just a short number of weeks ago. Again, Cork have had to manage big players and have done so all season. So I don't think Cork will be as concerned about one player as maybe the rest of the country will.
Cork, one thing mentioned by Chloe Murray and even yourself after the semi-final, I think it was as well, Sarah, was the Cork impact from the bench, the strength and depth. Like when you have people like Ashling Thompson coming off the bench sometimes, and Hayes as well is another. That's something that I guess Cork can turn to, because when you get to that 45-50 minute mark, that's what you need. You need that extra little burst.
Yeah, but I was reading Cathal O'Neill calling his the subs for Limerick hurlers the bomb squad. Do Cork start the bomb squad or hold the bomb squad? Because you've got 3 all-stars on the bench there: Ashling Thompson, Orla Cronin, Laura Hayes, who didn't start the semi-final. Matthew Toomey has a big question on his hands, because do you go with your strongest 15 or do you start the consistent 15 that have got you to this point? I wouldn't like to be in his shoes this week trying to figure out his best 15.
Which would you do, Sarah?
Go for broke. I'd have every player, if they're fit enough, they're good enough, they're on the starting 15. Yeah, I'd have Ashling in. The only thing about Ashling, I suppose, compared to Laura Hayes, is Ashling's just back from an ACL. She did it, I think, September, October of last year. So to even get back in the time frame that she has is pretty ridiculous. Laura Hayes had a foot injury in the start of the year. I don't know how impacted she is. Maybe they are on borrowed time. Maybe they are only able to pay for 20-25 minutes, I suppose, which is great for the girls who are starting, because it gives them an opportunity to get in. But I just don't know how fit the girls are and whether they have 60 minutes in them. So maybe the question has answered itself.
There are some big selection headaches for Cork, and it's not just those decisions to kind of start the bomb squad or not. But I guess in a final, in some ways people would argue you stick with what's gotten you here. So I guess the semi-final team is probably the favoured one.
Yeah, and look, they've been very consistent all year. I was speaking last week about the dual player issue for Cork. They've had a really kind of tough summer in that consistently week on week they've had players going to the footballers one week, staying with the Camogie the next week, the likes of Libby Coppinger, Hannah Looney, Orla Cahalan. That's another headache for Cork, both sides, for the ladies footballers as well, where you have players available but you're not sure whether they'll be playing camogie or football in any week, and then they're training with the footballers one night, they're training with the camogie the other night. If you look at the other teams involved in the championship, Galway didn't have that headache. They don't have dual players. Kilkenny don't have dual players. So this is another kind of, I suppose, positive for Cork in that they've come through the dual player issue and beaten Kilkenny and Galway, who didn't have the same issue.
The other thing about this final, Sarah, is that it's a novel fixture. I mean, someone saying the first time since 2012 that we haven't had, the Cork, Galway, Kilkenny, I guess trifecta, two of them in it. So from that perspective, it's a good thing for camogie. You'd imagine stretches the horizons a little bit. It
does, and Antrim played in the quarter-final against Tip, which was another novel pairing. I suppose it's just from the point of view of the teams outside of the top six, the resources that you need to be able to get into the top six and the money that you need to spend. County boards would find it very difficult to consistently, I suppose, deliver those resources for those players. So to keep Waterford's, Antrim's, the Tipperary's in around the top six and keep the competition competitive, you have to spend money.
Sarah, I was just reading the attendance on Sunday. I think the anticipation is sort of the 30,000 territory. And I know can sometimes be annoying around like your showpiece games that people end up sort of really analysing these things very closely and maybe not so much the match itself. But like, is that good? Is that sort of a respectable figure? Or would there be a feeling there's more potential there to develop? Or is that sort of, that's reflective of where things are?
I think 30,000 is reflective where things are. If you look at the League of Ireland, I suppose, is the kind of juxtaposition here, because that's what I'd be identifying against. And what would we get in the Aviva for an FAI Cup final in terms of the men's side? Would we look at 40,000 or 30,000?
Yeah, I think it's been 30. It's got up to upwards of 35 the last couple of years, but after a couple of years where it fell well below it, yeah.
And I suppose if we look at kind of them in comparison, if you're getting ladies finals and you're getting 30,000 there and you're getting 30,000 at the men's finals, that's where I see it. I think it's bang on right now. Dublin and Meath in the ladies football was kind of the sweet spot for the ladies football to get them over the 50k because of the proximity. But for the setup, I suppose we had 7,000 people in Nolan Park 2 weeks ago. For the camogie semi-finals. The hurling was on the Sunday, so again that was a big showing for the camogie side on a Saturday when I suppose the showpiece in the hurling on the Sunday. So if you're looking at close to 50,000 people coming to the camogie between the quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, that's pretty good, and it should be on an upward trajectory then from there.
Yeah, and I sometimes think like the week to week is more important, or the rounds building up to it, because the final is the final. But it's actually to make it more than that one time a year, that one trip a year. And I think that to me is almost more significant than people sort of labouring on. It's easy sometimes to run free buses to a final or to do things like that, but it's actually the more consistency, to me, that's the trend that you should be watching, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and look, it's hard to find a sweet spot in terms of whether you play the games on a Saturday evening, whether you play them on a Sunday, you clash them with the hurling, you clash them with the football. They're with this microwave championship, or with the season being so short, they're running right into the men's games, and the question is where do you take the kids? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a real hard one, but semi-final was unbelievable in terms of the atmosphere in Nolan Park, and that was driven by Waterford. Lads, they never stopped chanting from this was the 24th minute when they got the goal. They just kept going, and that was a real driver for them. So I know Chloe had said yesterday about the 16th man in Croke Park being really important, and Waterford bringing those crowds. Yeah, could be big. It could be big on Sunday for Waterford if they get the crowds in.
Could have an impact for sure. The other thing from the Cork perspective, Sarah, I guess, is the pain of losing consecutive finals. That's not something you get rid of too quickly, especially when it's this current crop that have experienced it. Is that something that you can kind of utilise, or is it, I guess each year is different, but I mean it certainly has an impact that I guess that pain never leaves you.
So this group has kind of, I suppose, under-delivered since 2018, but we're not talking massive margins. We're talking by a point, losing to Kilkenny by a point, losing to Galway by a point. They've been losing games in the last minute in injury time. Really heartbreaking stuff. Saoirse McCarthy got player of the match in the semi-final, midfielder for Cork. This is her 6th season with Cork. Year on year, she's been coming to the ultimate minute and losing. So there's a lot of pain, I think, bottled for that group of girls. And the issue, I suppose, for them is, as Chloe mentioned yesterday, there's a big cohort of people would love to see Waterford do this. So Cork nearly have to cut out the noise, give a performance, and if they deliver a performance on Sunday with the group that they have, this game shouldn't be an issue for them.
I was listening to a conversation, I think, reading with Amy O'Connor during the week, and funny how she, in an alternate universe, could have been maybe coming home from Australia with this team from the same parish, I think, in Knocknaheeny as Denise O'Sullivan, and would have played underage, even at an international level with her. So that's an interesting strand as well. That, what a big week for her. I guess she's been watching and following the Women's World Cup closely, but will be in Croke Park on Sunday.
These would have been all her former teammates. So there was an under-17 squad there a number of years ago, which included Denise, Claire Shine, Sarah, the Mayo footballer.
Sarah Rowe was in it as well.
Sarah Rowe was in it, and Amy. Amy has pace to burn, lads. She's incredible, but we're very lucky that she went to UCC and decided to pit herself with Camogie and play Ashburn, and for her to be captain of Cork. And I suppose she's a real talent, right? And a goal scoring forward, which is crucial for Cork on Sunday. It would be huge for her to bring it back to St. Vincent's. Really proud club. So I suppose she just has to block out the noise as well, right? And get the job done on Sunday, because so many times in the last 6 years they've failed to get over the line.
There are these annoying people, Dan, and sometimes it happens in the office. Jenny Claffey being one of them, that's just super talented at a number of different sports. Sarah's another one as well. So Sarah, underage Irish Soccer International, as well as the Camogie. It's just like, did you walk around school with the head held high, Sarah, and the ego? Just like, does it affect your personality, is what I'm trying to ask?
I went to an all-girls school and they thought I was a massive tomboy, so I don't think they even took any notice. I was obviously very rarely in school in 5th and 6th year because I had so much on.
You weren't mitching, you actually had sport on, to be fair.
Up and down the train on a Friday, back to school on a Monday. Absolutely nuts stuff. Would I recommend it? I think you have to, really. It's an incredible experience to have, but I suppose for the likes of Amy and Denise, they came at such a positive time in Cork soccer that they were in a great group, and they became really successful. Yeah, I'd love to be 10 years younger to be able to get a chance to play professional soccer. Yeah,
no, there's probably there's generations there that probably missed those opportunities. I mean, that's the reality. Like it's I think in other codes, like we've generally sorted out sort of talent ID and the sort of the strongest can sort of get to the peak of their potential, but there's obviously a couple of areas where that hasn't been the case at all. I think definitely like women's football is definitely soccer like is high up that list, and there's opportunities there. I think people like Katie Taylor and people like that, like it's sort of I'm not saying she wouldn't have gone the route that she did, but clearly if there was a full-time contract somewhere at the age of 18, do you sort of think, well, I mean, it's look, I mean, the flip side of that is that a lot of the players who are going to England now say the money actually isn't that good, and I think that this is a part of it as well, that it's great to commit to your passion, but it's not something that's setting them up longer term either, and that's why you kind of have to look at the education thing here, in my opinion. So there's a lot of elements to it, and it's probably going to develop over the next period of time.
The best players, I suppose, in my group as well. Katie Taylor was in my team, but Mary Waldron, and I don't know if you saw, she's retired this week. She's been playing cricket for the last, I think, 13 years with Ireland. Mary was our captain. She was an incredible soccer player. Mary Curtin was on RT this week with doing the soccer coverage. Again, an incredible soccer player. There's so many players who, I suppose, look enviously now at the WSL going, what could have been. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I guess you just have to make those. Sorry, I call it mitching, but I'm told by producer Colm here, Cork man, of course, that it's skiving in Cork. What do you call it then?
Well, I wouldn't know.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
I only know when other people told me. Do you know?
Yeah.
What the word was? Nerd. I've been called a nerd here. I was head prefect, Colm, I'll have you know. So I'm going to tell the principal on you. But thanks for that. No, the other one I wanted to bring up, and we mentioned her name already, Sarah, was Ashling Thompson. I saw it was Amy O'Connor actually talking about Ashling Thompson during the week, and she was praising her for her injury recovery, and she kind of missed the stoppage time opportunity to level the decider last year against Kilkenny, so I'm sure she holds on to that. But is she someone that you would like to see? Well, I guess she is. She's part of that bomb squad. She starts.
If she could start, that would be amazing, but in terms of her fitness, I don't know if she has 60 minutes with the ACL. Like, I suppose you'll find, and I found myself, that you kind of get 20-30 minutes and the leg gets really tired, and then you don't have the energy to keep going. So maybe it is that this season she will be confined to that kind of second half, but she was incredible last year when she came on against Waterford in the semi-final. And they may have PTSD when they see her coming on in the final, if that's the case this time around, because she literally turned the game on its head last year. Waterford were in control, they were looking really comfortable, and this powerhouse performance from Ashling from midfield last year in Croke Park, it'll be something that they'll probably watch this year to get it out of their system before the game starts, because it's Ashling's movement and the way she can sweep up so much. I suppose the danger ball in front of Beth Carton. Yeah, Waterford have a lot of plugs to fill over the next couple of days to figure out how they're going to contain this Cork team, because we haven't even spoken about Katrina Mackey, and she was so impressive in the semi-final. Briefly,
Sarah, who's winning and by how much?
Cork by 6.
Oof, that's fair. That's head and heart, I think. That's not just heart.
That's Cork delivering a performance that they absolutely have to deliver. They owe this to themselves.
Yeah, I can't wait for that final. It's going to be a cracker. And the intermediate and junior finals, of course, on Sunday afternoon in Croke Park as well. Sarah, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.